What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of For the Love of the Game. I'm Tommy Stiles. With me, as always, my good buddy Turner Riddle. Today, we are joined by 2012 USA's heavyweight champion and 2014 New York Pro champion, IFBB Pro Aaron Clark. Aaron, how are you doing?
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Been a while. Let's get everybody caught up. What are you currently doing? What's going on in the life of Aaron Clark?
Training a lot of clients, and I'm still training just like I was getting ready for the Olympia. I get up every morning at 4 a.m. and I go to the gym and train. It's just something I always do, whether I'm getting ready for a show or not. It's just, it's part of my lifestyle at this point. But just trying to build my life outside of bodybuilding. I started competing so early, and I think that had a lot of ups and downs. And I don't know, just trying to get my feet on solid ground and kind of maybe secure my future a little better before I think about putting all my eggs in another, competing again soon. So we'll see where it goes.
As far as training, how's that been going? If you had to compare yourself to where you were back in like 2012 to 2016, how's your training compared to then?
It's good. I mean, I think that I know more now. I've learned a lot of it the hard way. It's crazy to think. I was thinking about this the other day, just how much I've learned in the gym just through 15 years of bodybuilding, and then also training people that were not bodybuilders, and kind of all of it coming together and just learning how to work with the human body, and having to come back from injuries and overcome setbacks and stuff. So I'm smarter now about my exercise selection and how I train. And in a lot of ways in my life, I'm more disciplined. Obviously, I'm not 21 anymore, but do what you can, do what you got, and yeah, things are going all right.
Okay.
When you in 2012, how old were you?
23.
23. I want to ask you about that. Like,
yeah,
when you did nationals and turned pro, I think that was always crazy because you turned pro at what was it, like 209?
203. Yeah.
203. Nice. Mm-hmm. Was it Factory coaching you at the time?
Nobody was coaching me. I got ready for that show, and yeah, I remember at the weigh-ins, the guy said, like, well, you want to try to drop down, right, to light heavies? And I was like, no. And he was like, okay, and yeah, I was 203, but I'm probably 5'7", and I know that a lot of the guys in that class are like 5'9", and I knew I looked good, so I wasn't gonna mess with it. Just rolled in,
So you were 203 at weigh-ins, right?
Yeah.
That's on what? Is that Thursday?
Yeah, I think so. It was the USA's. So
right, USA. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't really off the top of my head remember which day was weigh-ins. And it was like the day before, though. It wasn't a long time.
Well, my question is, like, from weigh-ins until the next day pre-judging,
yeah,
was there like water manipulation, diuretics, anything taken?
No, at that point in time, all I did water-wise was I took aldactone for the last week.
Uh-huh.
And then that's it.
So you were probably right there where you needed to be at 203.
I was right. I just cruised right in. I didn't do anything. Because I didn't really know enough to be fucking with it like that. Like, I would have probably messed it up, and I looked good, and so I was just roll,
Okay, so who at that time, who guided you? And I'm not asking about a coach, but like, was there like a mentor, friend, or somebody that was like, hey, you should do this? Or like, who even told you to take aldactone?
So there was a guy his name is Brandon Gerties. This is interesting, actually. So I was a member of this Facebook group called Brotherhood of Iron. And these guys would all talk about training, gear, whatever it was, girls, you know, this is like meathead stuff, right? And one guy, if I had questions about prep stuff, like I would ask him, and that's what he recommended. He was like, I think all you need is to just run aldactone for the last week, you know, and that's just what I did. I actually saw him trying to maybe 4 or 5 days before, and just to be like, well, what do I need to do anything? And he looked at me and he was like, no, you look good, man. You're gonna do good. Just keep doing whatever you're doing. So we just rolled in, you know. But over that prep, really, I mean, I was just kind of freestyling.
So
Sometimes the less you know is better, because you
Sometimes it is, you know, people make
stick with one thing. A lot of people, knowledge today is missing. Like, people know too much, and it causes them to overthink what's really actually pretty simple.
Man, less is better. Like just simple, right? And I just worked hard, and it was just a simple timeline. Boom, 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 boom. They didn't do any voodoo stuff at the last minute. Just walked on there. I remember I lost my appetite the day of. I was eating peanut butter jellies. I just ate peanut butter and jellies all day, and that was it.
That's awesome.
that's I love hearing stories like that. That's crazy. So from prejudging until the night show, was there any indication other than, you know, standing in the center and things like that? Like, were there people talking or people telling you, hey, you should do this, or hey, you got this in the bag? What was that like?
Well, I think it's a really interesting, like when I think back about it, the experience of it, because everyone tells you like, well, you know, you can't just go win, you know?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
no, you can't do it. Everyone told me like, well, you won't win, so you need to do junior USAs, and then you need to do junior nationals, and then you need to do blah, 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 like the whole political run, right?
Right.
And I just broke, really, and I was like, well, I don't have money to do all that. I'm just going to do this when they can see me there, you know? And I had a few friends that were like, nah, man, I think you're going to win. I think you're going to win. And I think that I would always be like, no, I won't win. I won't win. Like, there's no way I won't win. But when I think back, like, I get, you know, I did believe that I could win. Like, and I guess, you know, in the prejudging, I just remember the moment that I really remember is being on stage, and there's so many guys up there. And we all had done our little 60 seconds, you know, and everyone's out, the whole heavyweight class is out there. And they put me like behind, like you can't even see me, you know. I'm like lost in this group. I'm like, man, they can't even see me. And they were calling out the first call out, and they called my name, and I was like, all right, like we're in it, you know. And yeah, I mean, it was the guy Anthony Pasquale was the big dog. He looked nasty, you know, but they picked me. I don't know, you know. But
who won that? Who won the overall?
The the light heavyweight, it was Darren Glenn.
Okay, yeah, I know who you're talking about.
And you know, Darren Glenn is an awesome dude, man. You know, I've talked with him like later on when we were both competing, but I remember being so blown because like I was there, and I mean, I wasn't the best shape I'd ever been in, but I was in pretty good shape. And the super heavyweight was in pretty good shape. And Darren was in, you know, and he was smaller, and they picked him. And I was like, what? You know, but I was like, whatever, Aaron, you got your pro card, man. Like, you know, don't be, yeah. So
Who was the super?
oh man, that's hard. Something in my head says like Frazier.
Huh.
Stephen Frazier, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was ready. He looked good. Yeah.
How did things start unveiling after that? Like, you win your pro card, you step off stage from being this broke kid that was like, well, we're gonna see. Like, I believe I can win. People are saying I can't win, whatever. Like, how did things start changing from there?
They didn't.
Really?
I think that doing the USAs, I tell people it was the most anticlimactic and kind of almost depressing thing like ever for me in my life, because like I did exactly what everyone said I couldn't do, and like I won the USAs, right? And up until Dallas McCarver turned pro several months later, I was actually the youngest pro in the world. And I remember going back home and my friend picking me up, and I was looking at it and I was like, "You don't have any gas in your car?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, man, I don't know." And I like filled his car with gas and went home, and I was like, "Man, everything's the same, you know?" And it's just like no one gave a shit. No companies reached out to me. And I remember I was working with a couple like trying to talk to agents and stuff, and they're like, "Well, Aaron, you're kind of short and you're not very good looking. So it's going to be hard for us to do anything with you." And I was like, damn, because all that time I had chased that. They kept telling me like, "Hey, Aaron, like you're really good, but you just gotta, I don't know, just win a regional show." So I went first try, won a regional show, right? And then I went, and every time I just nailed it, right? And I'd be like, "Hey, what's up? I'm here now. Like, you got something for me?" And they'd be like, not really, It's just, and they would give me a reason why. And so yeah, man, I mean, nothing happened. Zero. And the next year, 2013, I did New York Pro, but that was all out of my own pocket. There was nobody backing me. And that I got fourth there. That's 2013. Mark Dugdale beat me out for third, which I remember I was pretty angry about at the time. But I looked really good there. Like looking back at pictures, like I was peeled. And then Steve Bleckman approached me and he was like, "Oh, I'm going to sponsor you," and all this, Um, and I was super stoked. But I don't know if you ever have heard much about MD contracts, but it was not like, it was a little allowance, nothing to
Right.
change my life. And then I don't know if you want me to just keep going.
Yeah, go with it.
Okay. So that's 2013. And I'm like, man, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, because no one, like I said, I was like killing it, but no one gave a shit.
What were you doing for work?
I was training these sheiks that came over from Qatar, and I was, so, they would pay me. I would train them out of a golds, you know. And so then later that year, do you remember the company Gear Nutra?
Yes.
Yeah. So they reached out. Well, Sean Ray reached out and he was like, "I got this big thing. It's going to be great. It's with Kevin Levrone. It's with all these people, big names, right? And it sounds great." So that I signed this thing. And that was wild, the gear thing. Like it never existed, you know?
Talk about that, because I was all like, when you got signed and Justin got signed, like I was all like,
Yeah.
I was hot bodybuilding at the time. I mean, I still am, but like I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, what's this fixing to be? Like nobody knew what that.
Nobody knew, not even them. Yeah, he had samples, but the owner, Pete Scalisi was his name. And yeah, he's like this New York guy, always with his hat, and he would always, I don't know, he's just like, when you meet him, he's just like a big baller, you know. But it turned out he was balling on the investment money, I guess. I mean, we would go. He would just always get the nicest shit. You know, we would go to a photo shoot, and he'd be like, "Let's go to the club," and he would just be like, "Won money." You know, he'd spend like 50 grand on promotional golf balls and like all kinds of crazy stuff. You know, like big, huge booths. I'm sure if you were there, you remember like they had massive booths at the Arnold and the Olympia. And so, but for me, I did the Arnold that year, and that was a great experience. Probably one of the best experiences of my bodybuilding career when I did that Arnold, the first 212 Arnold, because I got third behind Flex Lewis and David Henry. And then after that, they're like, "Well, you're going to win the New York Pro." And I was like, "Oh." You know, they're like, "Yeah, you got it. You'll win the New York Pro. Like, you just got to do it." And I was like, "Oh, it's it's not that easy, you know." But it was like a weird. The Arnold to the New York Pro is like, I think I took like a week off, and then I just went straight into another prep to New York, and I did win against Guy Sister Nino. And then this is where it gets weird, is to the Olympia. I guess it was maybe a month and a half to 2 months before the Olympia, and stuff started to get sketchy. Like my checks wouldn't show up, and you would try to hit them up, and they would just give excuse and kind of like keep pushing it back. Like, next week, we'll get you next week. We'll get you next week. And yeah, the month before, I remember at that point in time, I needed the money just to do the show. And they're like, "Sorry, Aaron, we can't send it to you." And that's where, I mean, give a shout out to Fakri, who was helping me at the time. He helped me get there to the Olympia, and spotted me, what they didn't give me, which was, saved me. And yeah, I remember going there, and it was weird because, I mean, that was like everything started to fall apart for me then, on a personal level, because I dated the same girl my whole bodybuilding journey, and it's like right around the same time they stopped paying me, she was like, "I don't love you anymore." I had a ring for this girl and everything, so I was just like a wreck, but I was like, you gotta hold it together. This is like the biggest moment of your life. You can't like lose it. Like, you gotta just, you gotta get there.
Right.
And so I held it together, I guess, and got there. And I remember prejudging. I was in the first call out, and it looked like I was in fourth, but maybe had a chance at third from where they had me. And then in the finals, they announced me in sixth. And like, after that, I was I felt like a knife to the gut, when they're like sixth. And I realized, I'm proud of being sixth at the O, of course. And everyone's like, "That's really good for your first time." That's what everyone likes to say to you after that, when you're just like, and I can't, there's always a part of me that wonders, because Gear Nutra they were one of the sponsors for the Olympia.
Yeah.
And they yanked out 150 grand last minute, and I know that that's maybe not it, but it always is in the back of my head that, everyone else has paying sponsors that are paying, and, I'm associated with the one that yanked
Right.
a chunk of change. But it is what it is. Yeah, it was a wild year for me.
So are we still in 2014?
Yeah. Yeah.
When all that like blew up, like what was the last little bits of talking to them? Like, okay, well, you're not paying me. Like, what was that like?
I had to get a lawyer to get me out of the contract. And the funny thing is, the guy was like, "Man, I really, I'd ask you to stay, man. We got big things coming." And I'm like, "What?" Like, it's clearly there's no big things coming, right? Like, it's like the last nose of the Titanic is just above the water. It's like, no, don't get on the, it's like, it's sunk. Like, what are you doing? So yeah, I got out and I was talking to a few other companies. I think it was Gaspari that I talked to, and Fakhri was with Allmax, and their offers to me were like really low, like really small. And then Blackstone Labs offered me a athlete deal that wasn't huge, but it was something, and a job. And I think also because my personal life was in shambles, moving to Florida was also sounding good. So I just took up and left. I remember I sold an engagement ring I had and took the cash, and I just moved. Went to Florida to work at Blackstone.
How was that
Cool.
move? For everybody, I believe you're from Virginia, right?
Yeah, Fairfax. I don't know if you're familiar with George Mason University area.
Yeah.
It's near DC. Near DC.
Yeah, I know Virginia a little bit. But what was the move like to Florida? Was that a good thing for you at that time, or was Florida not what you were after?
I think that all in all, it was a bad thing, which I'll get into shortly here if you want me to. But
Yeah.
I think that I needed friends and family around me because literally everything left, you know. So when I went there, I ended up like the only people I knew were from work, right? And I just started partying, and then I picked up a drug habit, which is an interesting thing. It was I don't know how much you
Talk
are
about
cool
it.
with me talking. What?
Yeah. Talk about it.
Okay.
Whatever.
Um, so up to that point, I was a big pothead, up that whole last year. That's probably like, when I had all this stress and stuff, I was just stoned the whole time, and I would train and everything. I don't smoke anymore, but that was like, for that time of my life, I was really into that. Right. And I went to Florida, and, I was working as a sales manager, and I was doing the athlete stuff. And trying to think of the timeline of this, I think it was after the Arnold, right? But anyways, the girl that I was going to give the ring to before, and I was thinking that somehow I'm going to get this to work out. It's a bunch of, not worth getting into, but it turned out she's talking to me and has a new man though back home and everything. So I'm a wreck. And in the office there, they had all these like designer chemicals coming through, and they would think about putting them in products, right? It's like all these like internet, some of them I consider to be drugs, some of them I consider to be nootropics, some of them I consider to be supplements, They come in little like tubs, and they're little, I'm sure you know what I mean, yeah?
Yeah.
And yeah, there is a stuff that came through there, and it was called TNF sodium. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not.
No.
So it's a real strange compound where it was a pharmaceutical drug called Stablon. But Stablon was little tablets that were 12.5 milligrams, right? And at 12.5 milligrams, Stablon, you'd take it and it was for manic depression. And it would be like a fast-acting SSRI. So immediately you would feel like a mood lift from it. And it was basically to help people get through shit, you know, like having a real rough time. They would ration out, like maybe you take one in the morning and one midday, right? At that dose, 12.5 milligrams. But when this was given to me, I distinctly remember, you know, people that I'm not going to name people, but, you know, you can. Anyways, so I remember someone saying to me, it's like painkillers with none of the bad side effects, right? And I remember taking this stuff and it was great. I mean, it was fantastic. And it felt great, you know, and, but obviously you were taking more than 12.5 milligrams because you just had a tub of powder and a scoop. So you were just dry scooping it and then washing it down. And the half-life was an hour and a half, real short. So turns out at a higher dose, it's a strong opioid. And it does all this stuff inside you, but it was really addictive. And I remember running out one weekend and being like, holy shit, like I am fucked. Like I couldn't leave my apartment. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I just lay there shaking, you know. I was like, I'm super addicted to this stuff. And I can't stop because I can't afford to just like go die in a hole for like a month, you know? So I kept taking it all year. At the end of that, by the time I got to the Olympia, and I'll rewind back, but I was taking probably like 25 grams a day of it, which it's 12.5 milligrams is the regular amount, you know? So, I mean, because your tolerance just shoots up. And I had to go to an outpatient rehab and they put me on Suboxone and a bunch of other shit. But that was kind of that whole year, I just kind of spiraled downwards. And that was really the main issue, I think. So was Florida good? I think it could have been good. I think that I was just not in a good place personally to kind of take advantage of the opportunity. And I was, at that time in my life, I really recognized that I was just always looking for an escape, whether that was getting high, whatever it was, just to kind of go away. And, you know, I found it, but it certainly cost me, you know, quite a bit. But so I don't want to just ramble on. I was going to reverse back.
Good.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, after I tore a muscle in my forearm, and this is right around the time of the New York Pro. I remember I grabbed a handrail at work and the tendon ripped off on the outside of my forearm here. And I was planning to do the New York Pro to come back and like defend, you know, but I literally couldn't pick up a frying pan with my hand. And so I was like, guess I'm not going to do that. So I think that also probably perpetuated the drug thing because I was super bummed out. I couldn't train. And so I was just getting high all the time. Then as the summer went on, I remember I was getting really angry with myself. I'm like, man, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm going to do the Olympia. I'm going to qualify and I'm going to do the Olympia. And so it was like 3 weeks before the San Antonio Pro. And I was like, I'm going to just do the San Antonio Pro. And I prepped for 2.5 weeks for that show. And yeah, it was crazy. I mean, at this point, I'm a full-blown addict. You know, I'm just carrying this stuff around, you know, and I dieted for 2.5 weeks. And I got there and it's 212. The night before I weighed 221. And I was like, fuck. And the guy, I still talk to him today, great guy, Trevor, who worked at Blackstone. He was like, Aaron, it's cool, man. We can just chill, man. Like, you don't have to do the show. It's good, man. Because he was like, Aaron's going to do some crazy shit to make weight, like, you know. And I was like, no, my mom's coming to see you. It's like, I got to do this. Like, I got to do the show. I'm here. I'm going to do the show. And I remember taking, and obviously it's a terrible thing to do. I took 6 diazides that night and I pissed out, you know, enough weight, at least 10 plus pounds. And I looked good. I remember getting up and being like, damn, like it worked. Obviously it's terrible, but, you know, and I remember getting on stage and people being like, no, it's not Aaron's best. You know, he was better at this show. And, what's his name? Matt Porter. I remember him online just ripping me a new one, being like, blah, blah, blah. And the other guy who beat me has since won the Arnold Classic Physique. I'm trying to remember his name. He was smaller, like maybe 180 some pounds. And yeah, anyway, I lost to him. I was just distraught. But I mean, like, what can I really expect? I mean, I was a wreck. And it's insane that I was able to just pull that off to come and win second place there. But that was it. I remember the guys at Blackstone were like, all right, Aaron, like, don't do the Olympia. Like, just cut it there. And I wouldn't listen. And I did the Olympia. And I just ate shit there. And when I went to the Olympia, I was like, after I do the show, I'm going to go check into an outpatient rehab. And they're like, yeah, that's a great idea. And so I did the Olympia, and then I flew back to Virginia and I checked into outpatient and detoxed from that stuff. But yeah, so then, and that's when I left Florida.
That was 2015.
Yeah, that was around the end of 2015. Yeah.
And then was there like a layoff to like 2018 then?
Yeah, because then I just really, man, it was one thing to the next. Like, I abused all kinds of things. And I look back, I'm like, I don't know what I was, you know, what I was thinking, what I was doing. But yeah.
Were you still, was there any periods where you were like, you would lock into training and then kind of fall off, or were you completely done training for like that 3 years till you came back in 2018?
Man, I still trained. I mean, no matter what kind of horrible drug habit I was nursing at the time, I would still train every day. I mean, at least 5 days a week. You know, despite whatever. I mean, I was a wreck. I wrecked a few cars. I mean, but yeah. It was one thing to the next, you know, because they put me on Suboxone and Klonopin, and then, you know, it's trading addictions when you go to places like that, right? Like, you'll get off the one and then you're on this, and then eventually you got to get off that, and getting off that's really hard. So to get off that, you take more of the other one to be able to handle it, and then now you're super addicted to this. And that was just a cycle that I had for all the way till, well, so in 2018, I thought I would compete again. And I figured it would be just like when I did San Antonio, like I would just be like, I'm going to do this. And it would just kind of fall together. And I mean, it was a disaster. And I think it was good that I did it because it was super eye-opening for me and embarrassing. I remember when I went to New York, there was a guy backstage and he came up to me and he tried to pray for me. And then he tried to it's time for you to go, and like escort me out. And I was like, the fuck is this guy doing? Like, just totally, you know, because I didn't realize that I looked like as bad as I did. And yeah. And then I got ripped apart online, and I mean, it's kind of that, a painful reality check. Cause then years later, I noticed, even when I was, I was doing good, but I would run into people that had seen me then, and they would look at me like I was like this, like, is he there? Kind of like, I'd be like, hey man, um, but that's one of the reasons that meant so much for me to come back and do the Tampa in 2020, because after that experience, I just wanted to run away from it, but it's also, it weighs heavy on you. Like, that's how you left it, and no matter what good things you did, people just remember the last thing. And it's not about them, but people remember the last thing that you did. And you remember the last thing that you did. And that's kind of, sometimes for me at least, that's kind of the hat that I wear, is how did I leave it, right? And I just, for my own sake, I had to go make it right in a way, and come do well, do decent,
Yeah,
and kind of,
for people listening, 2020, you come back and everybody knows the shitstorm that 2020 was globally for everyone. Yeah. So it's not like an optimal time to even be prepping. You did the Tampa Pro, and I believe it got moved and delayed, and maybe, I can't remember the timeline, but you took fourth.
Yeah.
So to come back from 2018, where worst competitive year ever probably, and then 2 years later be fourth at a IFBB Pro show is, how did that feel with that? Not necessarily the placing, but just completing the prep and going through the show. How was it?
I mean, I think it was kind of necessary for me. Like, I needed it. And of course, it's just me. Like, I was bummed that I didn't win, of course, but like, I also, that was George Peterson who won. I mean, he looked crazy. I mean, I wasn't going to beat that. I knew that. But yeah, I mean, how did it feel? I mean, so I'll say this, it was interesting because I hired Johnny Castellana to do my prep. Because, side note, I know Johnny from before, when I was getting ready for USA's. Johnny was a trainer at the gym I was working out at. So I knew Johnny from back then. And he was one of the people, he was like, you're going to go pro, And I was like, nah, whatever, dude, And so I guess I felt comfortable with him. And so I hired him. And in the past, I was always a terrible client, or like, I would go rogue a lot. And I think it's just because in my own head, I knew that I had won by myself, which is a weird, it's a weird kind of arrogance that you can have inside of you, like, just because of that. And I think that my whole experience before, it really broke me down and humbled me. And it also caused me to not trust myself like maybe I did at one point. And so I needed somebody to tell me what to do, and I followed it to the T. And that was really the only prep I'd ever done where I followed everything to a T, in 2020. So it was a different experience for me. But yeah, it was, like I said, it was validating, say that.
Okay, I want to go back really quick. And this is not bring up any bad memories, but like, you're in the thick of what like really interests me. And it's not just about you, but like I said, I lived through that time, and I got to like see all these things happen, and like being like pulling for you and wanting to see you win. Like when you shit the bed but you said it, not me, but at the end of the day, like, what coming out of that, what were there something that was said to you, or hate mail or shit that was said on the internet that like you still think about today? It's like that one person that said one thing and it's like you can't hardly like let that go.
Are you talking about after 2018?
Yeah.
Well, so the biggest thing that happened then was the people that I thought were my best friends at that time. I remember they went on, especially one of them, they went on Facebook on one of the groups where everybody was in, and he just blasted me. And he was like, yeah, man, he's a hopeless drug addict. We all tried to help him, but he won't, blah, blah, blah. Kind of like he had really tried to help me. And the truth was he had tried to buy drugs from me like a week before. And he made up a bunch of stuff. He took advantage of the situation that he knew me. And he just was like, it's my time to kind of get in the limelight and like get my little 10 seconds here. And he just trashed me, just threw me under the bus. And like a lot of the other friends, they like liked the comment and they were like all on board. And I was like, damn, like it's that easy, These are like the people I thought were my best friends. And because none of them really tried to help me or anything like at all. No one tried to intervene or, not even a little bit. And so, yeah, I think so I was with my ex-wife at that time. And, well, hold on, I didn't answer your whole question. You said, is there anything that stuck with you? I think after that and the experience of it, I was like, I'm not going to read anything else online, like, because I know what I have. Like, I know what I have to do. I know what's wrong, and anything else is just like, I can't, it's just negative, right? Like, I know what I did, and I take responsibility for it. Like, I know there were some videos that even to this day, like, I never watched them. They're on the internet about me, but I never watched them just because I know it's negative and I just I'm not interested. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that definitely one thing that bodybuilding has taught me, just the long term, the whole journey on the internet, is like, just shut it off, man. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, I got what I needed to get from people's reaction, and anything after that, like, is unnecessary, right? So, like, after that, I moved to Panama City Beach and started a painting company with my ex-wife, which was totally out of my comfort zone. I mean, like, super random. I actually think you wrote me one time about that gym down there.
Yeah.
Trying to remember the name of it.
It's got a weird name, but yes, I know what you're talking about.
No, I'm talking about. Yeah. I didn't live there for long, but yeah, that was an interesting time.
Fitness Junkie.
Yep, that's it. Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was that, and then I moved to North Carolina. I've been here since 2019, and 2019 was the year that I quit everything. Like, because I was on those benzos for a long time. And God, they're so hard to stop. Like, I was crushing them for years. Because when you get on opioids and they get you off the opioids, they'll give you the benzos, the Xanax and the Klonopin and all that stuff, right? And at one point, I was getting a script from a doctor, and I went to go get it refilled, and they were like, sorry, he's dead. I was like, he's dead? The doctor just dropped dead. And no one else would fill my script because they're like, no, it's a narcotic. We won't give it to you. And that's when I just started buying them, and it, spiraled out after that. Because then I was just taking a ton of them. But yeah, I mean, that was you know, by the time I moved to Florida and then I moved to North Carolina, and when I moved to North Carolina, my ex-wife was like, I think she gave me an ultimatum. She's like, you got to stop these. And we ended up getting divorced anyway, but a good, you know, good thing came from I stopped taking those. So that was rough. That was really rough. Yeah, I think that stopping those, if you've been using those for a long time, you don't feel normal for probably over a year. You know, your brain is fucked up. You don't know how to handle any interaction or anxiety anymore.
That's cool. I'm glad we got to touch on that. Not because I wanted to bring that up, but like,
I don't care.
I feel like the internet, which is like a double-edged sword, but the people that have no clue about what's going on in your life will just chew you up and spit you out.
Oh,
And it's
yeah.
like,
For sure.
and for someone that was addicted to some of those drugs, I mean, like, let's not even talk about the addiction to steroids that we all have at some point in time. Like, and I don't mean like you're not selling, you know, parts off your car to go get a bottle of testosterone, but it's like the way that it makes you feel in the gym, and then the affirmation that you get from some of the things that you're either doing in the gym or the way it's making you look. I mean, that's a big addiction. And
Absolutely.
I think that if you can admit it's an addiction, it's not as bad. But if you're like, steroids isn't an addiction, that's something to, you know.
Right.
But
no, you're right. Bodybuilding is go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I'm sorry.
I mean, bodybuilding is, I tell people, like, bodybuilding is kind of like, to say it's like it is almost like a disorder contest sometimes, you know, like because, I mean, to be honest, I started bodybuilding, I had eating disorders, and I realized I was 110 pounds, and I was like, I remember, like, I was gonna die, you know, and I was like, I don't know what, like, it was my attempt to like save my life, right, to start lifting, and so, you know, that's where my mind, like, that is the mindset that I brought into bodybuilding, and I also tell people, like, you know, it in a sense, it seemed almost like, well, then I got better, right? But I didn't really get better because I didn't deal with those demons. Later on, they came back to haunt me, and drugs and other things. Like, you never get to go around that stuff. You know, you got to work through it either way. But yeah, I mean, it's what it is. It's certainly it's not mentally healthy, any of the, you know, the steroid use and all of it, really, you know. Some of it.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, like, to an extent, right?
What I was going to say is something you touched on about, and it happened to me too, and it's all kind of like what happens from there. But like, when you have that early on success that you gained by yourself,
Yeah,
it's like that it makes you a little like stubborn to following anyone guidelines or rules, because you're like, dude, I just fucking pro at one of the best shows to turn pro at by myself. So, you know, I'll pick and choose what I want to listen to you about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
And then, like, going rogue, when you're writing the plan, it's not as going rogue as if you did that following someone else's plan. You know what I mean? Because it's just like, I know what, like, I'll just do extra cardio and then I'll be back to square one.
Well, yeah, if it's your, you know, if you're teaching the class, then you do what you want. But it's like, right, if you have someone coaching you, right.
Crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. All right. So we basically answered every one of my questions. I do want to say, like, I think you touched on it. Like, is there one moment, or is there like one time, like the best memory that you have from bodybuilding?
Man.
Was it like what someone gave you the validation that you thought you wanted, or was it just holding up a trophy at, you know, a show, or was it like the fact that you were making money off of bodybuilding? Any of that?
I think that I think that, during my the height of my competitive success, like bodybuilding was not financially rewarding for me. I think that the reality when I won at the USA's was like, damn, I pulled it off, you know? But I've thought about this a lot. I mean, I don't feel like I was surprised, because I feel like I really went out on a limb to do that. And in order to do that, I had already played that in my head over and over and over again, right? Like it happening, right? It was like I was trying to not expect it to happen, but deep down in my soul, I expected it to happen. I hope that doesn't sound arrogant, but that was just how I pushed myself to do that,
That makes sense.
Was that what feel like? What it sounds like you're talking about is kind of like visualization. Like you saw yourself as the winner. That's why it wasn't a surprise.
Right.
That doesn't sound arrogant at all to me. And I think anybody who subscribes to that level of thinking, like you got to have a little bit of ego in bodybuilding to use to your advantage. I mean, there's definitely an overflow of it, but if you don't believe you're going to win, why the fuck are you going to do all the things we do to, you know what I mean? Like the drugs.
I ask people that all the time, man. I know what you mean.
No one's just doing this for fun. I mean, it all might be fun in a weird way if you have a twisted mind, but all of what goes into a contest prep, especially at the level, you were at, it's not fun.
No, it's not fun.
So, did that, when we kind of get into like mindset and for the love of the game, which is the title of the podcast, I remember following you during that period, and I was just always like in awe of your leg training because it was like heavy squats, heavy barbell lunges, leg press. What was like going through talk about training? Like, what's your mindset during training at that time, and is that still how you train today?
Yeah, I mean, I train like that as much as I can. I think that I have a better understanding of mechanics, right? And how to approach certain issues that I might have. Because for the longest time, really my whole when I was probably like 20 until 30, I had horrible sciatica down my left side. And every time I would come out of a squat, it would like jar me, and there would be times where like I just couldn't make it through sets of squats and stuff. But I think it was just the thing of like, I thought that's what I have to do this, right? And I guess I just grew up watching like the Ronnie Coleman and all that, and just this kind of thing in my head, like, I'm not a bitch, I train like hard or whatever. Like, I think that some people get caught up in that, and at that point in time, I would get caught up in it a little bit. I still believe in a lot of those principles now, and it's for different reasons. It's not because I'm trying to prove that I'm tough at all, right? I just think that those movements, you can't beat the basics. And I think that doing free weights, it helps us move correctly, right? And if you just train with machines, you're not really forcing your body to move in certain ways that are really important, especially as you get older. It's super important. So, I mean, I still train that way. I just probably am a little smarter, and I don't train like, I'm not going to lie. There's times where I get carried away. Like I tore my adductor in May this year, squatting. But I try to be careful,
Right.
Keep myself in one piece as much as I can.
So with not necessarily, having something that you're pursuing directly as far as competing, like a show on mind, what's driving you intensity wise in the gym right now? Just love?
I think that, you know, and this goes back to what I said before. I got into bodybuilding because I needed the training to function, and I was already doing it. Because I remember a guy at the gym. I was in high school, and a guy came up to me, and he's this big guy named Brent, and he had placed top 6 at the USA's or Nationals, one of those shows. And he came up to me and he was like, "Oh, you have great genetics. You should compete." And I remember, I was a high school kid. I remember telling him that, and like that was the super gay. That's what I said. I was like, "Oh, it's so gay," like, oil and root, like, and he was like, "Well, I was top 6, and I was like, oh, I felt kind of bad then." And I don't know, I guess, he kept telling me that. And eventually I was like, I think I could win that show. And eventually I got warmed up to it. But I never trained that way because the stage was my goal. I always just trained that way because that's just for me, like, I have to look myself in the eye in the mirror every day. I have to be able to live with myself. And so that's why I get up at 4 a.m. and go to the gym. Like, it's not about the next show. It's not about anybody else. Like, if I was the last person on earth, it would be the same way. Like, it has nothing to do with that. To me, the competing is just it's a byproduct. And I mean, I'll do that until I fall apart. That's just how I am.
Yeah. I mean, that truly exemplifies love of the game. I think, a lot of us, I think a lot of people, at least who got into bodybuilding, 10 plus years ago, loved the training, and bodybuilding just kind of came next. But
Right.
What's your view of bodybuilding today? Like, as you're still IFBB pro, you're still competing, as of 2 years ago. So what's your view of bodybuilding as a whole today? Do you follow it closely or no?
I follow it here and there, because I follow all those guys on Instagram, so I see it whenever I log in. My view on it, do you mean like on who's doing it currently, or how do you mean my view on it?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. So
basically,
go ahead.
Well, when you were, we'll just take nationals in your first pro show, like for instance, I watched your video yesterday where it was, or day before, where you were talking about like the box jumps that you were doing, right? Like, now you're marketing yourself. Beforehand, those early years, like, marketing yourself was like, oh, MD wants to shoot me. Okay, that's cool. Like, now here you are. This is also a business. You look at it in a business manner versus before it was just like, hey man, I'm bodybuilding. If you want to come to the gym, just don't fucking slow me down with that camera bullshit. You know what I mean?
100%, man. And so this is an interesting side note on that is when I did USA's, Bradley Martin was sharing my room with me because he knew Brandon Gerdes. They were friends. And Bradley Martin did terrible. He got like 16th place or less, like, did terrible. And I remember he was like, "Oh, you're the champ," He was like eating my food and stuff, or like drinking my water out of my fridge. And yeah, he got tanned in there. And I think my parents were like, "Hey, he's kind of rude," or something like that, And he was just like really out there, But it didn't matter that I won, right? He's a relentless self-promoter. And now he is killing it on all the social media outlets, right?
Right.
And I think it's recognizing that success in fitness isn't a trophy, right? And then sometimes it can be the opposite of that. Just focusing on winning titles doesn't get you very far. I mean, I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
So it's broadening my scope of what I'm investing energy into. And Because yeah, I mean, like you said, the game's totally changed. You just have to wait for people to come to you. And now it's more of like, if you build it, maybe they will come, right? Like you bring the people to you. And there's pros and cons to that, I think. At the end of the day, I don't have a problem with it. Just it forces people to be proactive. I think that the whole eat, sleep, train, like I get a check in the mail kind of lifestyle allowed me to get into trouble, because I didn't have somewhere I had to be every day other than work out. So I would just be getting fucked up. And like, that I know that about myself now. Like I need things that I have to do. I need somewhere I have to be at a certain time. And some people act like that's the dream. And I'm like, no, it's not the dream, man. Trust me. I was like, that almost killed me,
I think that I even myself, didn't almost kill me, but like there was a phase there where I was like, damn. Basically, I put it like this: like I left a lot of money on the table. I was making money, but I left a lot of money on the table because I was making enough money to eat, sleep, and train. And if training was good, then I was making enough money. You know what I mean? Like versus now, it's like, okay, that wasn't the best workout, but if I pocket, $1,500 today, tomorrow, and the next day, it's like, all right, well, fuck that workout. You know what I mean?
Right.
So yeah, I think what Tommy's asking is like bodybuilding's changed for a lot of us. Even that's a crazy example with Bradley Martin. Like back then we would joke that he got 16th. You know what I mean? And now like who's the fucking joke on?
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? That's really crazy. And like even that's like eye opening. That's eye opening to me.
Yeah, I always use that example for people. I'm like, just to say, like, it doesn't matter. Like do you 100% do you, and don't worry about trying to fit in anybody's box, right? Like right now, the way things are, just put it out there,
Make your box. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like even I was watching that one where you were the box jumps, which I've watched all your videos for a long time, and that's what I wanted to talk about that while we were training. Like it always seemed like when you were, we'll say squatting, like it always seemed like it didn't matter if you were squatting 400 or 500 pounds. It always seemed like it was harder than it was because maybe you're just contracting that hard, or maybe you're fighting the nerve, but like, you're shaking on the way down. And like, now that's how I train, because I'm trying to contract the muscle and control the weight versus like, you take me back to that time when I was watching your videos and I was like, I could squat that shit for reps and make it look easy. But like looking at it now, or for the last, we'll say 5 years, it's like, no, man, he's just squeezing the hell out of his muscles. And it's like, I've pointed people in the direction to show them like, this is what it should look like. It's controlled. He's squeezing like it's his last breath of air. Like that's what it should look like. Versus, you take some of these guys that just make 400-pound squats look easy, but they've got small legs.
Yeah. Well, I think that there's a few reasons for that. And one of them is, like you said, the nerve. My legs, my right and my left legs look like they're from two different people. Like the way the attachments are, my right quad attaches completely differently than my left. And they're so different that if I were to just crank out reps, like I'll be jerking all of it. Like, so I've always had enough things wrong that I have to do movements like really deliberately and really focus. And I can't just like, sniff some ammonia and then fuck it up. You know what I mean? Like I just, like, yeah.
No,
I mean, so, you know how it is. Like once you have some asymmetries, if you just start pumping them out, like you'll be, that's how you get hurt, or like you just make it worse, right?
I've never, like, I can now because it's more like a controlled type of way that I train, but like we'll take it back to 2014 or 15. Like, I was never the guy that wanted to sniff the ammonia and do that, because like I was already at a rage going into there, so I didn't know what to do to me.
I've never even used it. I just used it as an example.
No,
So,
I'm glad you brought that up. But like,
yeah.
I don't use it now either, but I have training partners that do, and I'm like, okay, but like, I don't. When I'm 400 pounds, I don't want to be. I want to go into that zone of blacking out once the weight's on me on like my second and third rep. But like, going into it from just picking the weight up, backing up, I'm coherent. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I never have been the one, like, I've trained with guys who like hit me, you know, like they want to get hit and like just having people yelling at them. And I'm always like, just get away from me, you know, like
Right.
I need to be just focused, you know, and I'll lift the weight. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't touch me. Yeah.
I think, you know, it just takes time and reps to really learn how to keep that tension on the muscle too, because
Yeah.
you know, when you're younger, and I went through this, is like you just want to get strong because you think the more weight you do, the more external validation you'll probably get from others, whether it be online now or even at the gym. Like you want to be the guy doing the most of whatever. So
Right.
I had to backtrack a lot at different phases of my, you know, my journey. And now it's like squatting 315 feels a lot harder than 405. You know, I can sit into the whole pause and then stand up. Versus, you know, I think you just have to learn, like you learned your body, like you need to do things deliberately. I have to squat that way as well. Like if I tried to do what Tom Platz does or the way John Meadows squats, I'm just going to get hurt. But those guys figured out that they can squat like that and build amazing legs. You just have to figure out your own body. That's why it's hard to, like, you know, put content out online, because everyone takes it like this is how it has to be, when it's like, well, that guy does it that way, that guy does it that way, that guy does it that way. You need to take all that and figure out what works for you.
Right. I mean, I think that, and this is just my 2 cents, it's like, I would always recommend anyone slow it down first, right? Slow it down first, learn, you know, that deliberate, like where you're contracting, and get that movement dialed in. And then if you want to like make the movement more ballistic and you can control it, like go for it.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll figure out where that sweet spot is. But I don't think, if you never slow it down, even the pros that you see that just they train the same way throughout their whole career, just like, you know, balls to the wall craziness, like that anyone would watch it and be like, I think that's really bad form. I mean, they had all kinds of tears, and no one gets away with it, really. I mean, they look crazy, they look great, but I mean, I always tell people that looking good is about consistency. It doesn't mean that that person trained right or correctly. They just took gear and went to the gym, you know, consistently. And so here they are, they look really jacked, but it doesn't mean that they trained correctly. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, correctly, eventually, for each individual, means what allows you to keep going to the gym week after week after week, right? Like, I mean, if I go in and try to train like Branch Warren, I won't make it through the month.
No.
But I will never dog how Branch Warren trains, because, dude, it worked.
It worked. And I wouldn't obviously like talk shit about it either, like, because he's a better bodybuilder than I would ever be. But I would venture to say that if he trained more like a Jay or somebody, that it probably would have been better for him. Mm-hmm. But he didn't, and that's what he did, and whatever, right? Like it was good enough to get him to where he was, and he was an elite bodybuilder. So whatever.
Yeah. Well, like because we're talking about this, you take someone like Johnny Jackson, for instance, right? Like I think the way he trained for his upper body is why it looked like that. But I think that same training carried into his legs is why his legs never were as big as they should. I think from the shit that I've watched, and you only see like a 5% of their actual training that they put online. But like, I
Right.
feel like strong as he was, if he would have slowed down, and I've always said that, like you take that negative rep and you make it 3 seconds and then a 3-second positive. Like, I think that, I mean, obviously he's got phenomenal genetics. So, but anyways, that's my two.
No, yeah, I
There's
agree.
no reason why he shouldn't have crazy legs too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Shame.
So
Well,
but
go ahead, Turner.
what's that?
Go ahead. Whatever
No,
you got.
you got something?
Oh yeah, I was gonna ask. So, tying all this together, what does all the adversity you've faced, whether it's been external or self-created, what has it all taught you? In 2023, what can you summarize it as far as like what you've learned from everything?
what I've learned from everything.
From your ups and your downs.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, a lot, an awful lot. Because I didn't even touch on everything. There's a lot in there. There's a lot in there. I think that one thing that I don't even know if this answers the question, but I think the one thing I struggle with a little bit now, but it's gotten better. But I know that after I kind of hit a bottom, I didn't believe in myself anymore, and I kind of allowed a lot of those negative things or these events to just break me and just kind of like, because you know how it is, like building self-confidence is small wins, right? You show up for yourself, consecutively. And same is true in the reverse, right? If things go wrong consecutively, whether it's your doing or just chance, it has the opposite effect, right? And I think that near the end of that, I just realized that I remember getting a job as a personal trainer in a gym and really believing in myself, like, I don't think I'm qualified to train these people. And I mean, these are regular people that are like a mom who's overweight, not like an elite athlete. And that process of kind of rebuilding that has been, I still don't think that I fully have all the way. And it's something that, I'm working on. But I noticed that it does get better, obviously, over time. Because I think about, like, on USA is how I was like, I can win that. And I went and I did it, right? And that's, like you said, like, you envision it in your head and you do everything necessary and you make it happen. And, life will take some crazy turns. Our stories have all kinds of chapters, good, bad, it's all part of the story. And I guess where I'm going with this is just that I don't know, like to just rebuild that belief in myself that I had maybe at the beginning. It's difficult. I think that's one of the reasons why it's hard for me to want to compete now. That's because I know what I was at that time, and I'm like, I don't know if I can beat that again, and I don't know if I'm willing to do what it takes to beat that, and if I should do that. But to backtrack again to something we were talking about earlier, I think it's that when any issues in your life come up, like, you have to deal with them head on. Like I said, this whole period, I was always someone to escape. And, it just will come back around in a different form to you. And it did that to me for years. And I think to just kind of learn to be alone and learn to be, I guess, comfortable in the silence and just, I don't know, like, I just, as cheesy as it sounds, like, just learn to live with yourself and, like, because I don't know what it is, but, all throughout those years, I was just finding some way to get away from that, run away from that. And there's no running away from that, right? The best you can do is just accept yourself and just be brutally honest with who you are, what you are, and focus on what you can control and just look forward.
Yeah. I think that's good advice. I mean, there's a lot of people who could take that and, apply it to whatever current situation they have. So
yeah.
You got
My buddy, he said the same thing about he had heard a quote about, it was what you said, the silence. Like, most people can't sit in a room in silence without, because whether it's your iPhone or it's the TV, it's your cell phone, it's like it's some sort of escape. And like all that is doing is just kicking the ball down the road a little bit further until you have to go to bed or whatever it is, to mask that shit that's going on up here. And like, I really think bodybuilding exacerbates all that. Like, you can and basically the only time, like, we're definitely escaped when we're at the gym. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's all of our escape. And then what we do outside the gym is kind of like our self-inflicted whatever the shit is. So I know I've dealt with that a lot myself, and I think that's why, like, at times I gym twice a day and whatever else it is. But so it's cool. I'm glad that, like, we really haven't talked to anyone about these type of things, and so you having a phenomenal story about those things and just being able to, like, come forth and talk about that's really dope. Like, not that this is AA by any means, but like, and like, I got to live, Tommy, I got to live through that. Like I said, there were times when I was like pulling for this. Like, I can remember being excited about Gear Nutra and then, like, when you did really bad at the show, and like just getting to sit back and be like, damn, man, like, people have said shit about me online, but like, I can't imagine it's anything like, well, I know it's not anything like what you were going through. So and then here you are today, like you said, like, you sit through the silence and just live to fight another day.
At the end of the day, man, you can turn your computer off, right?
Yeah. Like, I heard some, yeah, exactly. That's what it's all about. And like, just to tap into that, I got to a point to where, like, like, you like to stir the pot a little bit when your name is hot, but I would be getting ready for shows, and anybody and everything to do with competing, I would mute it. It didn't matter if they were my friends, Sulia, bodybuilding with Borders. Like, if they were going to compare me or bring me or somebody else that I had to look up to, it was muted. And like, honestly, those were some of my best preps when I just went through and I wasn't where I wasn't going to go look up somebody I was competing against. But if that shit came across from, one of these reposters or whatever, like, it would fuck with me. And like, so that was my way of just like, I'm not even going to deal with that.
No, I did the same. I never wanted to know the list because it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, your job is to show up nailed. That's it. Like, it really doesn't matter who else is going to be there. That's just noise in your head. And everyone likes to get all, I don't know. I mean, I know some people who get motivated like that, like they print out pictures of they like, but that ain't me, man. Nope.
Well, shit, dude, I don't want to keep you anymore. I know that we took you away from a client or whatever it is, but
no, you didn't. You didn't. They were good. Yeah. I just made the stupid error of thinking it was the other way, and I was like, oh, so yeah, it's all good. I filled my time, and then I came back home.
Well, good shit. Like I said, this has been a really cool pod for me, especially just because, like, I feel like everything you touched on, I kind of lived vicariously through, whether it was something I was going through or something that I was watching you go through. So it's It's
Yeah.
cool. I
Well,
appreciate it.
I mean, I like, you know, some people don't like it. I mean, I like talking about drugs and stuff. So, I mean, if you guys ever want to talk, if you ever want me to dive into it deeper, I certainly can. I enjoy it. So,
Yeah, let's do it. Let's plan a part 2, whether it's next month or, you know, like, let's get on your, you get on ours, and we'll make it happen.
sounds good, man. Love it.
Awesome.
Cool.
Appreciate
Check us
you
out.
coming on, Aaron. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Leave comments down below. We'll keep pumping out content every week, but it's real, it's raw, it's for the love of the game. For Aaron Clark, Turner Riddle, I'm Tommy Stiles. We're out of here.
See ya.